Do you know what century is? Century is a period of time that lasts 100 years. Historians like to divide time's period into century in order to study the unique things that happen during specific time in history. In this commercial, we were going to talk about the 20th century. Let's look at some of the important events that happened during the time and think about how they shape our lives today. The 20th century began in 1901 and ended in 2000. Remember now, we said that the century is 100 years long. Here is an interesting fact. 100 years equal to 36,500 days. Wow! Century can be also broken down into decades, which are made up of 10 years each. As you might have guessed, there are 10 decades in every century. There were a lot of things that happened during the 20th century that had a great impact on society and have changed the course of the history and lives. Let's look more closely at this event divided up into decades. 1901 to 1910. Have you ever wondered when the first airplane began to fly? In the year 1903, the Wright brothers made their first flight. Their plane helped to connect people and places together in new and exciting ways. Are you a basketball fan? The first World Series took place the same year that the Wright brothers took a flight. Cool, right? And of course, the invention like electric washing machine and plastic were also created during the 10 years period. 1911 to 1920. The second decade of the 20th century brought us amazing things like the first Oreo cookies and the traffic lights, daylight saving time, but it also signals the beginning and ending of the First World War, which lasted from 1914 to 1940.
Good day, Philippines! It's me, Precious.
And Iris Hari.
Life in the Philippines during the late 20th century was very simple. The war destroyed factories and burned the countryside during the battles of liberation in the country. But the will of the Filipino people survived during the time. All around, smiling faces, laughter, and the songs surrounded the Filipino, attracting more visitors and tourists to the country.
With the popularity of the hippie culture in the late 1960s, many Filipinos embraced this culture, which continued until the early 70s. At the same time, the rise of Filipino nationalism began, and both movements influenced the way people live and dress.
Thank you, Ari. The early post-liberation period was marked by a kind of struggle of mind and spirit, posed by the sudden emancipation by the enemy and the wild desire to see print. Philippine literature in Tagalog was revived during this period. Most names in the writings dealt with Japanese government and the brave guerrilla exploits. May I call on Maria and Felicity to give us more information?
In the period activism from 1970 to 1972, many young people became activists to ask for changes in the government. And the expression of desire for change keen were the writings of some youth who fired with nationalism. To emphasize the importance of their petitions, the literary revolution emerged and the youth became completely rebellious. This was proven not only through bloody demonstrations and sidewalk expressions, but also in literature.
campus newspaper showed rebellious emotion. The once aristocratic writers developed an awareness of society. They held pens and wrote on placards in red paint. The reverence for poor reached its peak during this period of the mass revolution. It was also during this period the Bomba films that discredit our ways as a Filipinos started to come out. Back to you, Kate Ray.
Thank you, Gwen and Tehor, for that wonderful statement. Let's move on. Harry mentioned earlier that martial law happened in this era. And to understand, may I call on Ogdang to tell us what happened during the martial law.
Filipino writers began exploring socio-political realities in the 1970s, with a focus on exploitation and injustice. Writers like Ricardo Lee, Virgilio Almario, Efren Abueg, Eve Perez Jacob, and Domanidor Mirasol produced disturbing texts that addressed repression and violence. However, when martial law was declared, these writers found themselves silenced, as the dominant literature focused on institutionalized violence, nightmarish situations. However, the voice that spoke eloquently could not be stilled. Writers like Bienvito Santos, F. Sionil, Gregorio Brillantes, Nick Joaquin, and Carlos Buslon an expletive and eventually found their voice and began to explore the issue of the time. Back to you, Kate Ray Ampo.
Thank you, Ogdang. And now, let's talk about the period of New Society from 1972 to 1980. The late 20th century marked a significant period of growth and development for Philippine literature. It was a time when Filipino writers explored various themes, style, and perspective, reflecting the dynamic social and political landscape of the country. The martial law era, which lasted from 1972 to 1986, under the regime of Ferdinand Marcos, greatly influenced Philippine literature. Many writers used their craft to voice their dissent and critique the oppressive government, resulting in the surge of politically charged literature. During this period, prominent writers like Jose F. Lacaba, Pete Lacaba, and Walhati Bautista produced work that explored the themes of resistance, human rights violation, and social injustice. Their writings become powerful tools for expressing dissent and raising awareness. The emergence of the kasaysayan or historical novel became a notable trend in late 20th century Philippine literature. Authors such as F. Sionel Jose Amado, Amado V. Hernandez, and Linda T.Y. Casper delve into the country history, bringing to light the struggle and the triumph of the Filipino people. The novel Noli Me Tangere by Jose Rizal continued to have profound influence on Philippine literature in the late 20th century. Its themes of colonialism, social inequality, and national identity resonated with writers who sought to explore similar issues in their works. The establishment of the University of the Philippines, or UP, Creative Writing Center in 1978 provided a platform for aspiring writers to hone their craft. It became a hub for literary workshops and mentorship programs, nurturing a new generation of talented Filipino writers. The Manila Critical Circle was founded in 1980, furthermore promoting and recognizing outstanding work in Philippine literature. Their annual National Black Awards become a prestigious event that celebrated literary excellence in the various genera, including frictionism, poetry, and non-friction. The late 20th century also witnessed the rise of women writers who tackled the feminist themes and advocated the gender equality. Notable voices include Nochika, Jessica H. Haggard, and Jelka Collier Fernandez, who explored the female experience and challenged social norms. Philippine literature in the late 20th century was not limited in traditional form. Experimental and avant-garde work gained popularity with writers like Virgilia Almario and Jose Dalisay Jr. pushing boundaries and experiments with language and narrative structure. The short story genre flourished during this period, with writers like Gregorio Brillantes, Quirino Polaton, Turbera, and Estrella Alfon producing notable works. Their stories captured the essence of Filipino life, often delving into themes of love, family, and social realities. Poetry remained vibrant from a form of expression in late 20th century Philippine literature. National artists for literature such as Jose Garcia Villa and Edith El Tiempo continued to inspire aspiring poets, while emerging voices like Jimeno H. Abad and Merlinda Bubis brought fresh perspective to the genre. The Philippine Educational Theater Association, or PETA, played a significant role in the development of Philippine literature. These staged thought-provoking plays that tackled social issues, inspiring both writers and audience alike. The public